they'll probably deny that. But let's see your own side of it.
Well, I think election spending, I mean, there are rules and regulations for election spending and how much the limits and all that, but how you monitor that, I think, is a different issue. But I think we have to understand that at this time of the year, election is a big intervention into the economy. And during the elections or during the political campaigns, you're impacting at a very, very high level, and you're getting to the grassroots because there's a whole economy that is built around campaigning. There are people who are printing posters. There are people who are hired hands or renting crowds. People are catering to all these masses. There are people moving all over the country, and it involves grassroots campaigning. And I think that is why you feel that sometimes the masses of Nigerians understand that this is the time when they get all the attention. And so there is a big amount of spending that goes into a lot of all these areas. So there is a big economy around that.
Could it be said to be financial empowerment for the masses?
Not really empowerment. I mean, it's a business. I mean, a political campaign is a business, and you want to reach the media.
And it's only for a time.
Yes, it's only for a short period of time. I'm sure there's an impact on your channel too.
I was going to say that.
Because obviously a lot of people are looking for media space.
Yes.
There's a surge.
Yes.
There's a higher than normal demand for media space at this time of the year. It impacts you, and it's something that you cannot put into your budget because it's not a normal situation.
Correct.
It's an intervention at a particular point in time. So every 4 years, you know that you can look forward to it. But if you want to run your television station based upon that, you know that financial model cannot survive. So at this time of the year, some people actually can benefit because it's an intervention. It's going to be something of about 6 months, and I think it's good. But beyond that, I think what we should look at is the fact that it is a political economy, and a lot of the policies, because why your previous discussion was important, because I was listening to that program because I'd wanted to try to get a sense, because people are talking about the manifestos. And I think the professor told us that there's no difference in ideology. And it seemed as if they were accusing each other that they had copied one had copied the other, and you know, it's all become quite murky. So I think what is important is the president has a challenge, and the president came up with a transformation agenda 4 years ago. What I'd expected is the fact that the transformation agenda is a document that is available to everybody. You could go to a search engine and get it. What I expect is that this is what the president 4 years ago put down as what he wanted to do. I think it's clear that what he wants to do, and how much of that has he done. The budget for the last 4 years has been close to 400 billion. You know, the resources he's had available to him, some of that for the states, but at least as a country, over the last 4 years, we probably had 400 billion dollars at our disposal. So the question is that probably half of this revenue goes with the federal, the rest is shared with the states. Question we don't ask ourselves is how, let us ask on his transformation agenda, let us have a critical assessment of that transformation agenda, and let us objectively begin to see what he has done and what he has not done. Then from the opposition perspective, then I think there are critical issues such as that ideology of power, as you mentioned earlier. What sort of economic ideology do you want to go? I'm going to build 10 refineries, I'm going to build this school, I'm going to do that. But the question is, right now, the budget for this year is at a deficit. So you have to also defend what you're saying. How are you going to finance a lot of all these promises you're making? And more importantly, I think the opposition needs to articulate and critique in a very objective manner the performance of that transformation agenda and say to us, well, are you going to reverse the privatization of the power sector? Are you going to go through a state-owned enterprise model, or are you going to go towards a sector you mentioned is the fact that government doesn't have any business in government, and we're going to privatize. So what are you going to do with the power sector that is different from what's going on here? Are you going to cancel the privatization of the power sector? Are you going to reverse the privatization? Are you going to sell off the refineries, or are you going to build new refineries? And if you're going to build new refineries, how do you intend to finance them? So, because if you take a look at our budget this year, you see, for me, the issues are that the critical issue we're facing is that with dwindling revenues, we are facing a deficit financing this year of at least ₦1 trillion. Now, when over the last 4 years, anytime a budget has gone to the National Assembly, you can always look at the figures. What the president submits and what the National Assembly approves is always an addition to. They have never cut the president's budget, and if you look at it over the last 4 years, on that area, there's bipartisanship when it comes to budget approval. There's serious bipartisanship. But this year, my own expectation is that we need to tighten our belts. We need to see the fact that this budget is being, but unfortunately, when 90% of the budget is going into recurrent, then we have 1 trillion in deficit financing. The beneficiaries of that 1 trillion in deficit financing is the fact that all the excess liquidity in the banks is going to move into that. So the banks are going to do well this year because there's ₦1 trillion worth of debt, government debt to finance. But the danger we have, and I think what I am looking for us to address, is the fact that the debt service is now becoming a major issue. Right now, we're spending close to 22 to 25%. Debt service is taking up 25% of our revenues. So, because those revenue numbers have come down. So, that is really where we really need to work, because we're going to start to, there's no government that is going to come into power that is not going to have to deficit finance. So the question is that, how are they going to address this critical issue? Those are the things that I want to hear. I want to know who is addressing them and how we're going to deal with them. The central bank is an institution. So, and there's a monetary policy that is set up that is relatively independent, and I think has proven its independence. Even this governor has proven that he's a very independent-minded person, and he would take monetary decisions that dictates that he's facing the economy. So he's proven that. So the issue now is the fiscal deficit on the side of which government. How do you address the fiscal deficit? And I think that is what I want to resonate, because as you said, the discussion previously, there were so many things. Everybody's talking about the masses, the this, the that, the that. But okay, whatever you want to do for them, how are you going to deficit finance it?
Dr. Chizie, he says that 90% of the budget is still going on recurrent expenditure. Every year the budget comes out, analysts come at least on this program and talk about this problem of the recurrent expenditure, and we still find ourselves in the same place. Is it that those who are in charge are not listening? Is it that they're not sound enough to be the ones handling this? Or how is it that we still find ourselves in this position? 90% for recurrent expenditure, where does that get us?
Let me first start by saying, adding to what Siliwa just said about the government central bank. I want to observe that people were surprised that he would allow devaluation. You know, he went and during his confirmation and said no devaluation, interest rates are too high, and so on and so forth. And as he did say, I know you have elections around the corner. And he looked at the exigencies, he looked at what's on ground, and has this monetary policy committee, and they said, look, this is an emergency. The long-term perspective is still there in terms of, having lower interest rates. Everybody knows that high interest rates is a no-go area if you really want to prepare the economy and develop the economy. But there's a fire, the fire is in the house. And so look, we need to certain things, emergency measures, and we expect that if we did that and then we stabilize things, then the long-term goal was still there. Now, let me come back to the question you asked me. I think that's, again, Nigerians have to be a bit more patient. Okonjo Iweala is probably one of the best candidates you can have. He almost became the president of the World Bank. But for the fact that Americans, have this monopoly, the sentiments across, was for her. She was not the president of the World Bank, And so we have that person here. She's a blessing. She's a gift to Nigeria. And whatever she's doing, we must give her the benefit of the doubt that she knows what she's doing. Now, recurrent expenses, what are they? Because we have massive people, audience, watching this program. They're talking of your salaries, wages, and so on and so forth. Now, those are things you can't rein in immediately. It's not like a tap. You don't just go in and turn it off. The Okonjo-Iweala is on record. My friend Bites Okogo, the director of budget, they all know that you cannot, that structure of the budget, whereby you have 70, 80% going to recurrent, it would not facilitate the development of this economy. Because then it will not bring sort of growth in the real sector, it will not bring sort of investments that will create opportunities and make growth inclusive and so on and so forth. So they're quite aware, but it's not something that they just go in there, tweak the thing. You can't, because you happen to sack people overnight and say you won't pay salaries. And so they've tried. They are trying. They're working. They started working down that direction. What's happening is that, you wouldn't expect it to happen, to be a quantum. So you go from probably 70, 80%, suddenly you go to 50 or 60. No, it won't happen that way. What you need to do is to be focused and make sure that you have a direction and you are consistent in following that direction. Unfortunately, what's happened now is that you have this disruption and it's affected things. And so what you're having now is not normal. But they are quite aware, these fellows will give them the benefit of the doubt. They are quite aware that the structure of the budget as it is today, in terms of recurrent,
It's not the best.
It's not the best for this country.
Okay.